Driven eastbound on Cornhusker Highway, you may have caught a glimpse of a billboard near 14th Street advertising a marijuana dispensary. The ad is actually for a dispensary in Rockport, Missouri, about an hour-and-a-half drive from Lincoln, where the drug is legal. In this installment of The Will of the People, 1011's Jake Lawson drove across the border to find out what enforcement looks like along state lines.
The biggest issue I remember with Nebraska individuals, because I dealt with Iowa and Nebraska a lot on Interstate 29, was fireworks. They would come down to the border and buy fireworks.
If you've been in eastern Nebraska long enough, you're probably familiar with Rockport, Missouri, likely for its fireworks. But there's a lot more than just cheap cigarettes and bottle rockets here. Right behind me is the Green Light Dispensary, just one of many across the United States. And this one even has a drive-through. While recreational marijuana use remains illegal in Nebraska, advertising across the state line is not. Hence the billboards up around Lincoln and Omaha. It's an odd sight considering the recent lengths that the state has gone to keep recreational and even medical marijuana out of the people's hands. But after taking a loop through the parking lot, it appears the ads are working. We counted more than 30 vehicles bearing Nebraska license plates, about half of them showing up in the 20 minutes that we filmed. That's not even counting the drivers from Texas, Iowa, and Kansas, all states where recreational use is still outlawed. Green Light Dispensary wouldn't let us inside to film their products or to talk about the billboards. But off camera, the manager told us the only thing they mention to out-of-state customers is which states marijuana remains illegal in. And although it's legal in Missouri, the State Highway Patrol says Nebraskans still get anxious when they get caught with marijuana on the east side of the border.
Yep, there's some indicators, that we're trained to identify, whether that person be breathing heavily, their carotid artery be going haywire, just because they're nervous. And even though it's legal, you still see people that get nervous just because they have it in their possession.
And right behind me is a bridge over the Missouri River right into Brownville, Nebraska, where marijuana is illegal. Now, if I just walked some 150 yards behind me with anything that I had bought from that dispensary just 6 minutes from where I'm standing, it could end up as evidence in the Nemaha County Sheriff's Office. In fact, we met a deputy at that sheriff's office who seized a small amount of marijuana from the Green Light Dispensary after pulling over a driver the morning of our visit. Despite being so close to Missouri, Sheriff Brent Lotman said most of the marijuana his office runs into actually comes from Colorado.
Methamphetamine is probably the next most common. Marijuana is by far the most common drug we deal with. Prescriptions misuse from time to time. Occasionally some other illicit stuff. Mushrooms is probably another one we run across from time to time.
While deputies might be finding more marijuana because it's decriminalized in Nebraska, it still is illegal. Getting caught with less than an ounce is a $300 fine for a first offense, with a similar penalty for having paraphernalia. Those penalties go up with larger amounts in subsequent offenses. However, it's unlikely you'd go to prison unless you've got more than a pound or you're selling it. And it's certainly a far cry from what you could be charged for meth or fentanyl possession. As marijuana crosses into Nebraska, authorities say they do their best to catch it, but still need a person's consent or probable cause to conduct a search.
The nice thing about marijuana is some drugs are tough to smell. That's where canines are very handy. Marijuana is not as tough to smell. You don't always need a dog to smell marijuana. In fact, sometimes you don't even need to have a very good sense of smell to smell marijuana.
The Missouri State Highway Patrol says even if they run into someone with a large amount of marijuana heading for Nebraska, it's not likely the troopers would contact the neighboring law enforcement offices to give them a heads up. Meaning the Green Light Dispensary parking lot could continue to see Nebraska plates for years to come. Reporting in Rockport, Jake Lawson, 1011 News.